In our journey on Sunday evenings, there has been, just like I've had the same experience that I've had on the Sunday morning class, because we're somewhat using a similar format, the His Word book, and we're kind of moving through the Gospels. But I want to hit the pause button for at least this week and the week after next. I started not to do this tonight because we're having a break in it, but it's okay. It's a whole different lesson from a similar text. But I want to take you back a little bit. And I figured, because most of you, as I look out in the audience tonight, you're going to kind of remember some of this. There's a sound I'm going to play for you. I started to do it through that, and I hope this works. Is this mic on? Turn this mic on for me, please. Thank you very much. This is good. I'm going to play a sound, and we're going to take you back in a nostalgic little journey here. It's the only time I can turn my phone off on purpose. Let's see if this works. Where's my speaker? There it is. Okay. Listen very carefully. May I play it again? Did you get it? Oh, somebody, who said it? Who said it? Screen porch. Does that take anybody back a little bit? Screened-in porch door shutting. One of my favorite sounds I can remember from my grandmother's house on the porch. And that's kind of where we're headed, by the way. I should have got a better sound. It didn't work as well as I'd hoped. Sometimes that happens, okay? I didn't even think about the sound while I was sitting down here, so anyway. But that sound, that's a sound of home. That's a sound of a very familiar place. And you may think, how in the world do you get to from Luke 15 to the porch? Well, I'm going to take you there. Beginning in chapter 15, beginning in verse 11. I don't know why I put 6. A certain man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. So he delivered them to his livelihood, divided to him his livelihood. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. This is the New King James, by the way. That's wasteful living. When he had spent all there, arose a severe famine in the land, and he began to be in want. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. When he came to himself, he said, How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was still a great way off, his father saw him, had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. And that's the first part of the text, and this is the porch part 1. The porch has a prominent place, at least in my life and in our memories. Let me approach it from a standpoint of kind of set the visual for you. Peering down this hillside, you see the homestead. It's surrounded by a strong split rail fence. The yard is expansive. The long winding drive cuts down the left side of the property. Cast-off toys that have been long forgotten remind you that time has passed quickly. The house is 2 stories, large but not overwhelming. Black shutters flank each window. Landscaping manicured and the yard trimmed. In the background, barns are well kept, and activity can be seen as the investment of hard days in the fields must now be managed. Affluent but not flashy. Wealthy but not wasteful. There are prominent features: the windmill, the corrals, the tire swing under the aged tree that stands towering alone in the front yard. However, the one feature that stands out above all else is the large, inviting wraparound porch lined with rocking chairs. A small round table holds the oft-used checkers set. A sleeping dog stationed near the screen door. Muddy boots from the field are left on the first step, a gathering place at the end of the long day. Iced tea and lemonade have been shared here. Late night cups of hot chocolate in the cool of fall evenings. Dates end in the swing on the far end of the porch, where long moments of silence are filled with spectacular views of a star-filled sky. The porch has served as a base during intense games of tags. It has served as a safe haven from sudden spring showers. Stories, jokes, and serious discussions have been had here, heard here. Laughs and tears and life have been shared on this porch. Jesus uses this scene to develop one of the most well-known and important stories, with this scene above painted in your mind. Listen again as you see. There once was a man who had 2 sons. The younger said to his father, "Father, I want right now what's coming to me." So the father divided the property between them. It wasn't long before the younger son packed his bags, left for a distant country. There, undisciplined and dissipated, he wasted everything he had. After he'd gone through all the money, there was a bad famine all throughout the country. It began to hurt. He signed on with a citizen there who assigned him to a field to slop the pigs. He was so hungry he had eaten the corn cobs and the pig slop, but no one offered it to him. That brought him to his senses. He said, "All those farm hands working for my father sit down to 3 meals a day, and here I am starving to death. I'm going back to my father. I'll say to him, 'Father, I've sinned against God. I've sinned against you. I don't deserve to be called your son. Take me on as a hired hand.'" He got right up and went home to his father. When he was still a long way off, his father saw him, his heart pounding. He ran. He embraced him. He kissed him. The son started to speak. "Father, I've sinned against God. I've sinned against you. I don't deserve to be called your son." But the father wasn't listening. He was calling on the servants, "Quick, bring clean set of clothes and dress him. Put the family ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Get the grain-fed heifer and roast it. We're going to feast. We're going to have a wonderful time, for my son is here. Given up for dead, now alive. Given up for lost, but now found." And they began to have a wonderful time. You see, the porch is a place of safety. It's a place of provision. All you've ever wanted, in reality, all you ever really needed was on the porch. There's safety on the porch. And when you think of this story in Luke, and you think of the father and you think of the son, there are 2 sons, I know, and we're going to talk about the second son. Well, I started to do it both tonight, but I just couldn't do it adequately. I didn't think. Maybe I could have. We got to the youngest son, and for the father, we want explanations in many ways, because if you remember, if you look back in chapter 15, verse 1, what started this whole storyline was this encounter. Then all the tax collectors and the sinners drew near to him, and the Pharisees and scribes complained, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." So he spoke this parable to them. And there are 3 parables: the lost coin, the lost treasure, the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. And here this father is, who is looking at him, and if you're the Pharisees, you're trying to figure this thing out. And the result and the outcome is the same. The youngest son exits the scene. He grabs the old duffel bag. He demands an early inheritance and opens the screen door as his father sits stunned, confused, scared, scarred, and without hesitation or second thought, he walks off the porch and heads to a new story. Naive, probably unprepared, tricked, duped, dumb. Again, the reason doesn't change as long as you think of the reality of the son is gone. The new story didn't go like the son had imagined, with the soundtrack of "I Did It My Way" in the background and "Welcome to the Jungle" in the foreground. In his mind plays the vision of easy street, freedom from rules, curfews, friends, fun. True love is the intended destination. Crazy restaurants, posh motels. Friends vanish as quickly as his fortune does. And famine finally finalizes his fall. As one writer has put it in a powerful way. You can't imagine that kind of fall. What would cause you to leave the porch? What would cause you to decide, see, because the Father could have protected you on the porch. That's the marvel of this scene in the Father. He could have protected him from the fake friends. He could have protected him from the famine. He could have protected him from the failure that he experienced if he'd have just stayed on the porch. And I know some of you are thinking, well, wait a minute, you can't stay on the porch. You can't. See, home is always a place. The little favorite, it was probably embroidered, probably 31 years ago at a youth rally I did over in Fayetteville. A lady there brought it to me after one of the lessons I'd given on coming home. And I'd made a statement during that lesson that home is a place where they have to open the door. And see, that's what the Father believed. That's what he practiced. And that's why this group of individuals couldn't understand. Why is Jesus around individuals who are sinful? Because we're always thinking about, well, there's nobody in my family that I wouldn't let back home. No matter what they've done, no matter where they've gone, no matter who they are. And Jesus shares in this parable a very powerful message. And he says this, there's safety if you stay on the porch. Because to stay on the porch, you must obey. There's some quick reminders I want to make for you for this, of individuals historically that stayed on the porch, if you'll allow that terminology. Noah had to stay on the porch. He was living in a time when it made no sense to do what he was doing. He had been told, I want you to build an incredible structure. Have y'all seen the pictures? I'm going to miss the location here. There's Kentucky, yeah. And so I just wanted to forget that. Maybe that's what it was. They have done a masterful job, and I've had several dear friends that have gone up and seen the remake of the ark and the massive structure that it is. And to see that, when my sister and her husband went up standing in it, said it towers over you. And you can imagine Noah in his day having never seen rain, being told, I want you to stay on the porch, Noah. I want you to stay right where you are. And I want you to build this incredible, because I'm going to bring a flood on the earth. Never seen anything, didn't know what that was. Just Abraham had to leave what was incredibly familiar, and at one point also even sacrifice his own son. He had to stay on the porch. In that sense, and giving his son, he had to stay on the porch because Moses had to stretch out his hands over an incredible large body of water with Pharaoh right behind him, being told that if you'll just stretch out the staff, the waters will part. Esther had to go before the king, knowing that if I do this, most likely, like everybody else that's ever done this, I want you to stay on the porch. I want you to do what you're told to do. The blind man had to go to the pool at Bethesda, and on we could go of lists of individuals. The truth is, and again, I want to read a little blurb. The truth is, enemies have been there all the time. They just couldn't get to you. Halfway obedient leads to complete uncovering. The truth is, fake friends, famine, schemers, plotters, the heartbreakers were in the abundance all along. The only thing is they couldn't do was reach the sun on the porch. The enemies that we blame have been aided and abetted by those who have stepped off the porch. The Father can't protect those who step off the porch. You ever thought about that? As long as we, to the best of our ability, do what God asks us to do, there is a safety that is involved in that. That doesn't mean a surety of nothing bad ever happening, nothing wrong ever occurring, but the closer to God we are, the more likely But some of the negative things that could happen in our lives won't happen, because we make better choices. See, when you step off the porch, obedience is cast off for preference or choice. Instead of doing what I'm supposed to do, I sometimes do what I think I want to do, or what I've been told by someone else I might want to do, instead of listening. I can remember so many times in my own life, with my dad most especially, and those moments where he would warn me, having known all the experiences, and many times, and you wonder why in the world, when our parents or when grandparents or when other individuals inform us, that's not going to be a good experience. Why in the world don't we listen? And I know some of you are immediately going, well, because some of us have to experience it for ourselves. And you go, okay, why? Well, that's where Satan has his greatest ability. Because Satan's somewhere just off the porch saying, yeah, aren't you a little too comfortable there? Isn't it a little too safe? See, Satan's greatest challenge today to individuals is, it's not seeing how far we can stay away from something, but it's seeing how close. Have you noticed the intrigue of seeing how close you can get to disaster in our world? How crazy, but without making the worst choice. And this story, I believe, is shared with us. I think there's a major reason it's shared, and I really believe the more significant part of this story is not about the son that stepped off the porch, but the one that stayed on the porch. That's going to be a whole different discussion. Because also in stepping off the porch, when you're willing to attach yourself to someone who will lower your standards, it's because most of the time the folks off the porch aren't the same as the folks on the porch. That's where the safety issue struggles. You're not only willing, but long for what you did not want. You see, the view from the porch, and this may not make sense to you, but I thought of this. The view from the porch is usually of those things that are good for you and safe and that are within reason. When you leave the porch, you leave the confines of those things that have been designed for your benefit. And you move into a realm of things that were never designed to be beneficial to you. But they look intriguing, and they look inviting, and they look exciting. And that's because that's what Satan wants us to think. Esther had to go before the king. The blind man had to go to the pool. When you think of the very thoughts let me share two quick thoughts with you. I'm not saying every time you're obedient to God, there'll be a miracle. Many of you have been obedient, still no impressive difference in your choices. What I can promise is you're going to see that God is always going to keep His promises on this side of obedience. We want off the porch because we feel like we've been restricted or ruled to death. We feel like the Father is a killjoy and wants to keep us from having fun. The truth is, He places us on the porch for our protection and fences us in to keep us from the famine. The story reveals that stepping off the porch is a dangerous thing to do. Coming back to the porch. As I cross 321, headed down into the valley that is called Shady, right after I come by the one grocery store that's still in town that's open, and through the traffic light that they turn off about 8 o'clock because there's not a lot of traffic, I come around about a half a mile turn and go past the church building on the right, and up on the left is a brick house that my grandmother and grandfather grew up in. There's a little deck out there with a screened-in porch, and I can still remember all of those moments when we drive up down 321 and get up there, and I'd go up those stairs, and that door would open, and I'd walk in and hear that familiar shut behind me and know man, I'm home. This is a place where I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm protected, and it doesn't matter what's happening out there, it's all good here. The prodigal, in a pig pen, dawns on him, what in the world have I been thinking? Why have I left the one place where I know people care about me? Why have I left the one place where I know that anything that I need is going to be provided? You see, the beauty of the porch is the door is always open as long as I'm alive. And he knew that. And even as he's rehearsing in his mind, as he's walking down the road, I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. I just want to be a hired servant. Can you imagine the feeling that he must have had? You've probably never been away from home long enough to have that feeling of going in and realizing all of a sudden everything I did is forgiven and I can start all over. The beauty of the porch is that no matter where I've been, no matter what I've done, there is a God that will say, it's time to kill the fatted calf. It's time to have the celebration. Let's rejoice. My son who was lost has been found. My son who was dead is now alive. Bring the robe. Bring the ring. Kill the fatted calf. How many times has Jesus intentionally turned to his Father? I want you to get this image with me for a moment. Come on in the house, Daddy's not coming home yet. See, because the image I get of God is of that same house and that same front porch. And every evening right after dinner, he walks outside and he looks down the road and says, is this going to be the day that he comes back home, that she comes back home? Looking down the path, squinting, seeing if maybe it's him or her, because we're all his sons or daughters. And if we've left the porch, I'm going to promise you, he's still standing there even now, looking down that road, waiting for, anticipating, longing to see us in the distance coming home. Perfect song, and that was chosen. You may know of someone. I guess this is more of a thought, and that's why a two-part of this lesson, and the more significant lesson I really believe is the rest of the parable or rest of the story. But you may know of someone that this applies to. I've thought of several individuals that I know God every day looks down the road hoping this is going to be the day they understand that they come to themselves and come home. Because he's just waiting. And he will celebrate in a way you cannot even imagine. Is there someone you know that you need to tell? You may be that person that nudges someone and gets them to realize, it's been a long time since you've been home. We've missed you. There's a great opportunity coming up this coming weekend for us to reach out to some individuals they haven't seen in a while. There's been 4 individuals so far that I've touched base with. My prayer to God is something's been said or done that they're gonna make a journey back. But they won't make it until they come to themselves. And you may be the person in their life that can look at them and say, it's time for you to start that journey back to the porch. How about coming with me Sunday? I'll walk with you. I'll do whatever it takes to get you out of the pig pen you're living in and get you back home. If we can assist anyone tonight in any other way, we need to share something, as was even shared this morning, a prayer request. That's why we have this moment and this song. Would you come as we stand and as we sing?